Hi, this is David from Mash IT. Today we're doing the build log of the Jonsbo T8 Mini-ITX case. This is the case that we recently unboxed on the channel. The purpose of this video is to just build in some standards and components, which is the Intel i5 9400F, a Gigabyte RTX 2060 Mini, and an SFX 450 watt power supply unit. So this is quite a sort of a medium powered build to see how this case handles these components, how easy it is to build in this chassis, and at the end we're going to be doing some thermal testing and some final thoughts of this case. I'm going to pop some timestamps down below, so in case you're not interested in watching the actual build in this case, and then you can jump straight to the thermal testing and the my final thoughts. I hope you enjoy this video. Please subscribe and hit notifications if you want to see further videos about our ITX cases. Okay, first things first, what we're going to do is build up the motherboard ready to put it into the case. So let's pop in the CPU. Right, so that's the motherboard built. So that's the motherboard built up, and we've got the side panels off the case. I've switched the fan out from the Jonsbo fan because I don't like RGB, so I've just put in a basic Noctua, 14cm. And there's the cable. We have our USB 3 cable there for the front panel. We have our power button and LED cables. Now we've got a little panel in here that screws in with these two screws on each side, and this is where you mount your hard disks. I'm just using the M.2, so I'm not going to mount any on here, but you just attach grommets to the hard drive, slot it straight on. You can either put in two 2.5 inch hard drives or one 3.5 inch. So that'd be quite a nice easy one to slide in afterwards if you need to as well. So we're now ready to pop our built up motherboard in. There she is. The advantage of these Strix motherboards is they've got the back panel already attached to the motherboard, so you don't have to faff around with that first either. Just line it up, trying to trap the cables. There we go. These ITX cases are always a little bit fiddly because you don't have a lot of room to work in. This one is a bit deeper than you'd normally have, but that gives you the advantage of extra PSU sort of clearance and CPU clearance. Okay, motherboard fixed in place. Now I've just got our power switch and power LEDs. We're going to pop those on the headers. This is always good fun. Which I've installed these motherboards enough times to know where they are. Okay. Try to do a bit of cable tidying in a minute. USB 3 cable. Put that in. Hide the cable there. Right, then we've got the system fan, which is actually right away over here. I'm going to put it on the top one, which is supposed to be for a pump fan, but you can switch it in the BIOS. Right, so next we need to pop in our graphics card. Got a Gigabyte ITX Gigabyte RTX 2060 to fit in. Now this is only 17 centimeters long, so this should be a nice easy fit in this case. I believe you can get up to about 19 centimeters or 20 centimeters in here comfortably. You do have a few cables to get around, so I recommend going for smaller if possible. There we go. And this has got a strange connection plate. Rather than your two screws putting down, you pop this on the top and screw this plate in, which holds your graphics card. Right, let's plug in our power supply cables. Now I've got a modular SF450 power supply, SFX power supply. You could put an ATX power supply in here, but you'd have absolutely no room at all, so I wouldn't recommend it. Stick with a SFX power supply. And if you've got a modular, just put the cables on that you need. I've only got one 8-pin graphics connector I need, so I'm left the other one off the PSU, sorry. And I've also, because I'm not putting a hard drive in, I'm not putting the hard drive cable on, just to minimise cable clutter in this case, because you don't get a lot of space. Precariously balance the PSU on there. Okay. Right, now the biggest downside I would say with this case is going to be cable management, because we've got no channels to hide anything, no space to put anything, and the PSU sits on top here, so I'm going to try my best to move the power cables around afterwards to tidy up a little bit. Okay, because I've got a small graphics card, I'm going to use that space behind for some of the cabling. I don't know how well you can see that because it's black all inside. I should have got the silver one, I think, but as you can see, PSU sits over the top of the motherboard, and there's really not a lot you can do with these cables. I'll tie them up a little bit. And on the back, I mean, you've got a little bit of an area here, a little bit of an area here that you can try and hide a few cables in, but that's really about it. So I'm just going to try and tidy these up a little bit more, and then we're pretty much done. Just make sure your fans spin as well if you've got these cables snagging around. There we go. That's about the best I can do, really. So, glass panels. It's quite an easy build, other than the cabling. And you can get a decent exhaust fan with this 14cm fan at the top, which is really handy. And you can get a reasonable height PSU clearance in up to about 66mm. So you could get a Noctua, I think it's an L9 by 65 in there. But my processor doesn't need that, so I'm just leaving it with the L9i. And we'll take the plastic off later. There she is. It's a nice looking case. I just think, you know, this definitely, I'm going to attempt to swap this out for an aluminium panel with a bit of ventilation. But the carry handle is very sturdy, which is nice. And that isn't difficult to build into if you've ever built into a K39 or the S3 like I've previously done. That was actually quite easy. So let's go get it set up and benchmark it, see what the temps and thermals are like. And we're back. So we're all plugged in to my test setup. Going to hit the power button and hope all is going to go according to plan. The fans are starting up, it's a good sign. See if we get some life. Now this is an SSD that's already been set up on this motherboard, so I don't need to muck around with it. Right, we're loading. Oops. Now, this is straight out of the box BIOS settings, so stock fan profiles. I haven't messed around with anything yet. It's very quiet, which is nice. I can just hear the hum of the 14cm fan, which could probably be adjusted if we wanted to. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run an Intel XTU benchmark just to see what the fans are like, you know, how the temps are. So let's have a quick look. So I'm going to go to benchmarking. We're idling at about 35C at the moment on this i5 9400. So I'm going to hit the XTU benchmark and let's just have a listen to the fans and the temps. Right, so far so good. The CPU, I mean, this isn't undervolted, this is just straight out of the box, normal voltage. This is quite a sort of hefty test normally for these CPUs, and we're doing 65 degrees. That's really good. When I was running the K39 and the S3, you were up into the 70s and 80s, and you could really hear the fan. So far, I can't hear any extra fan noise. Just the low whoosh of the 140mm fan. I mean, I think you can put a much more powerful processor in this size case, I would say. Probably a 9700 over this 9400, especially if you use a slightly larger heatsink like the Noctua L9 by 65, which is a bit taller than the L9 that I've used. Right, so there we go, run the benchmark. Temperatures are perfect, absolutely no more fan noise than idle. So I'm going to whip it on CPU stress test, and just going to sort of fast forward through this so you don't have to sit and watch it, but this will give us an idea of long-term temps for the CPU. After this is completed, I'm going to run a 3D mark and see what the 3D temperatures are like. Okay, we're a minute into the test. Temperatures are still fantastic in the 60s, just touching the 70s, running its max clock of 3.9 gigahertz on the 6 cores. Just heard the CPU fan spin up a little more than idle for the first time. I think if you customise the fan profiles yourself, you could have quite a silent system, but this is just, at the moment, it's just a nice hum. In comparison to the S3, when you're running tests like this, you can really hear the CPU fan. It really has to sort of spool up just to keep the temperatures under control. Okay, so we're almost 3 minutes in now, and the temps look completely under control, so I don't think I'm going to waste 10 minutes when it's not creeping up any more than 75. I think it seems to be creeping up to about 75, and then the fan will spin up a bit higher, so with the stock fan profile. This is easily maintaining the temperatures, so I'm going to call that one a day, and I'm going to now run a 3D mark. Okay, so we're now running Time Spy, 3D mark Time Spy. It's already gone through the demo section, and we're now in the graphics, so we're probably about 5 minutes into this benchmark. All you can hear realistically at the moment is the GPU fan spinning at 57%, which is showing through MSI Afterburner on the screen. The 2060 in this machine is a Gigabyte Mini 2060. It's running its usual boost clock of about 1830. Temps are okay, it's about 69, but considering the fan's only just the base 60 odd percent. Now the CPU itself is still 50 degrees, so absolutely no problems with this CPU at all. When I run this in a long-term small machine, I do normally undervolt the GPU, which makes a massive difference as well, but this is stock, straight out of the box, full speed, full power. Now with regards to the fan noise, realistically all I'm hearing is the actual GPU fan. This is running at 62% on this card now, which is reasonably, it's louder than every other component in there. So I'm going to just stop talking and we'll see what it's picking up at. So we can see it's running at about 46 decibels behind the case, where it's actually kicking the noise out of the machine, and that is purely the GPU that's making that noise. Now idling, it's very quiet. As I say, when I do normally undervolt this card, it does keep it an awful lot more quiet as well, but these small cards do get quite noisy. Well, final thoughts on this case. I have to say, it's the first Jonsbo case I've actually bought. It's $79.99 on overclockers in the UK, and I'm incredibly impressed with the build quality, how solid the machine actually is, or the case actually is. And I've been impressed with the ease of building into the case as well. You can get a reasonable amount of components into quite a small package. I think the glass panels on both sides is a bit pointless. I think everyone's trying to get on the tempered glass bandwagon, but it's totally unnecessary. I would have much preferred solid panels with just a bit of ventilation in. I think that would have done wonders for the system, and it is already quite a quiet system. Having the 140mm fan at the top is really impressive. It's given me nice quiet idle temperatures, and even under load the machine is pretty good. I mean, as I say, I would normally be undervolting everything, keeping sort of stock clocks and getting a system quiet. Well, you could easily do that on this system and have an almost silent system on load. So all in all, very impressed with the system. It's not a lot bigger than the S3 and the K39, but you're getting a lot more value for money with this case. It's a lot cheaper than those other systems. You can use an SFX power supply or even an ATX power supply if you're crazy, which gives you a lot more options again for higher quality PSUs with better output, without having to spend £150 on the Enhance 7660B, which is about the only decent Flex ATX PSU. So would I recommend this case? I think If you're looking for quite a small case you can transport around, you're not looking for the absolute tiniest case such as the K39 or the S3, then I think this is a very, very good option. It's not difficult to build in. You've got a little bit more of tolerance for the components that you can put in here, and you can actually have a very quiet build at the end of it, which is very nice. I think you're going to really struggle to get these tempered glass panels showing off the beauty of the innards of your case, because the way that the cables come out of the PSU is pretty much impossible to make that attractive when you're looking through to try and see the motherboard. But other than that, it's a very nice looking case. So that's the end of this video. Please subscribe and hit the notifications bell if you want to see further upcoming videos of other ITX cases that we will be getting in. And thank you for watching.